And greetings, fellow settlers. It is Alex here, and today I have another Settlers of Catan gameplay for you. I am placing the second, and the island is really interesting because wheat is really concentrated around in two spots, but especially at this 958 spot, which is the one taken by the purple player. And from the beginning, you can see that he pointed the road towards the wheat port. And at the same time, his spot, so this 958 spot, is worth 13 production points, which is the highest amount of points you can get. And at the first glance, it may seem as he will have a good game because he has two spots producing wheat. He has a wheat port, but I'm not so reluctant, mainly because he missed out this 654 spot, which I took. And this spot is good because it is worth 12 points, which is the second highest amount of points possible. And it also has a ore source, so ore is, of course, an important resource. And then I will just take the wheat later. Now, the major learning lesson from this game is, in my opinion, the fact how much time you need to win by this so-called port strategy, which is exactly what the purple is probably going to do. He has a wheat port, and he will probably place his second settlement at this 610-2 spot. Um, in order to maximize the wheat production. And me, on the other hand, of course, I am looking for good wheat spot because I'm employing so-called in this case I am kind of a balanced strategy because I have very good wood, brick, wheat, ore, and wheat. So I'm pretty confident that I can win this game due to insanely good numbers I'm on. Uh, and then purple is, of course, employing the so-called port strategy. But the problem with port strategy is that you need large amount of times to win, because for each resource you need, you have to trade two of your resources, which is definitely taking a time. So as I instructed or advised you in the last video, you should really employ port strategy only when the board is really strange and there are many scarce resources. Excuse me. Now, I bought the development card and I got a victory point, which is, of course, something I shouldn't complain about because this is the second best single card in the game. But still, in the beginning, I usually prefer to get a knight just to fend the robber off my tiles. Um, so maybe if we then just look at the gray player, how she placed her settlements, and in my opinion, those placements were not really good, mainly because I don't really see a point. She's missing wheat, which is the single most overall important resource in the game. Without wheat, you cannot do anything. At the same time, kind of trying to go for the road strategy, but she's lacking wood production, but has tons of brick. So I'm not really sure what she's going to do. Then me, on the other hand, I tried um, I tried to go more of the middle strategy, but I have to admit that I made a mistake. I pointed a road towards the brick port, although I should really point this road towards the 3-1 port because it's overall a better, more useful port, and but the brick port is really comes in handy only if you have large amounts of bricks to spare. Now I'm trying to get wheat out of someone because I really want to build a city. Um, it is very important to build a city early on because cities increase your production greatly. But I mean, if nobody wants to trade with me, then I'll just buy a development card. Maybe if I offer a brick, the purple will trade. Yes, and of course he did. He do trade because he really wishes to build into this port with port. But this gives me a city which is of great benefit to me because it doubles my and of course I benefited immediately. I got 2 weeks, and now I'll just start buying development cards really to fend the rubber off my tiles and to get maybe some more victory points or monopolies, hopefully. So basically, this is really a showdown of how how quickly you can win with employing a so-called city knight strategy. And because even though right now I'm playing a balanced strategy, I can still decide on which strategy I want to uh, go towards more. And I decided for the city knight because it's a lot more powerful. You control the board with the rubber. Then you also increase your production greatly because of the cities that you have. And last but not least is that you need the least amount of resources to win. I read an article where they did some mathematical simulations and tried to decide which single strategy is needs the least amount of resources on average, of course, to win. And it turned out that the so-called seed night strategy needs the least amounts of resources. Then it is I think road strategy, then balance strategy, and of course at the end is this so-called port strategy, which needs I think something like double the amount of resources of the normal city night strategy. And this is of course mainly due to the fact that you need to trade, because you have to think, even if you have favorable trades. So yes, you can trade 2 single resources for one, but it's still 2 resources for one. So you'll still need a lot of large amounts of resources to uh, kind of go around your deficiencies. But of course, this is just on average, and because these mathematics were done by the assumption that, of course, if you're playing sit knight strategy, the assumption was you will get the largest army, and also I think that you will get at least 1 victory point or something like that. And oh, speaking of the devil, I just got another victory point, which is of course nice. It's always nice. This is why I call them the second best development cards in the game, because kind of you seem like you're not a threat, like, yeah, I seem like I have 3 points, but in reality I really have 5. That's why I love victory points. um but of course they cannot compete with the monopoly, the single strongest card in the game, which really comes in handy during the end of the game, where there are massive amounts of resources because everyone is just producing a lot more, and you can just plug all the cards out of your opponent's hands. And why is this card the strongest one? Well, because first of all, you'll use it to get at least 1, if not 2 victory points. So it is worth on average more than 1 point, 1 victory point I'm talking about. And also it is the only card in the game that really benefits you at the expense of the others. I mean, yes, the knight is kind of doing the same. You can block somebody else and take resources out of their hands, but you know, the monopoly is just going on the completely next level, because I have had games where I just used monopoly and got 20 woods out of my opponents, and then I just used my 3-1 port, and I got 3 victory points in one turn. So that's what I'm talking about. You really have to use it to crush your opponents, and to really snatch the victory out of them. So yeah, that's the main reason why I think it's the single strongest card in the game. But as we can see, it is now kind of not really a competition, if I can say that, because I'm just steamrolling this game, and from this point on, I just knew that I'm going to win. I mean, the gray just positioned himself in a very bad way. He doesn't have any complementary resources. He's not in good numbers. So my only competitor is purple, who is really struggling to do anything really, because he'll just progress too slowly in order to catch me up. Now, something that I do have to mention up, and I didn't notice this before, is that we are also playing a harbor master strategy or scenario, which means that the first player who will have 3 victory points in a port. So, for example, if you have one settlement and one city into the ports, then you will get additional 2 victory points. You can see this in the purple's player profile, where he has a kind of a little wave and the number 1 next to it, which means that he has equivalent of the 1 victory point in the port. And consequentially, due to this scenario being in place, for the overall win, you need 11 victory points instead of 10. So this is definitely something that I have to watch out for, because I probably don't want to let the purple take the largest port. So I'll probably just build in this 3-1 port settlement, and then another settlement in the brick port, and then I'll just build a city in one of them in order to secure this card, those 2 additional victory points. Right now I'm kind of debating whether to try and or whether to be patient and wait for a city, or to buy a development card, and I decided to really just pass the turn. Now, this is not something that I would usually advise, because I'm already, or okay, I'm not in the lead, like because they don't know I have 2 victory points. But even though I'm, you know, in tie with the purple, so usually it's not good to go in the lead, at least especially in the beginning of the game, because people will start target you with the robber. But since kind of I kind of don't think that the gray is really a good player, which can be seen by placing a road towards my settlement, even though she cannot even build there. And also, I still have 2 hidden development cards, which will probably scare off the other players. I still decided to just wait and try to build a city. Now let's see where the purple is going to place the rubber. Hopefully not on me, because I have a city in my hand. Oh, and he does blocks me. Takes my ore, which is unfortunate, because the ore is blocked, and it's also less probable to fall, although I got lucky and strike a rubber. I placed it on the 9 wheat, so in order to block his wheat production. And again, I got extremely lucky because I really got that ore back, which enables me to build a city. Now looking back again, I don't think this is really something you would like to do. I really probably made a mistake here. Mainly, I mean, I don't have knights in my hand, and as a sit knight strategy or as a sit knight player, you pretty much want to have all the time at least one knight in your hand to chase the robber off your tiles. And also, this gray is kind of also looking to go into this path, although to be honest, he's probably not a big threat at all because she doesn't even have wheat. Now, the purple probably looking for a settlement. He will probably build in this 3-to-1 port, which is really a mistake in my opinion. If I were him, I would just build a city at this 958. So to double up my production, especially those 9 wheat and 5 wheat production. And then I would just, started to buying development cards. Because as a port player, you really want to chase the rubber off your main tiles. And as you can see, this is also the perfect example of how to defeat the port player. You just have to block this the resource that he's trading in, and this is the best way to really cripple him. Well, and he rolls the rubber again, unfortunately for me. Yeah, of course, he will block the 4 ore. Now the good point is that I have a wheat spot next to his settlement, so he's unable to block my wheat. And I still have another ore production spot. And now, I mean, this is really unbelievable luck. I got another victory point, which is pretty rare if you buy this quantity of cards, because I think that I have bought I think 4 development cards and 3 of them were victory points. So yeah, that's something that has probably never happened to me before. I mean, I had 3 victory points before, but I bought also large quantities of cards. And again, no knight, but rather a monopoly, which is again something that I can't complain because this is the best card in the game, but still pretty funny. Seems like there are not lots of knights, at least in the beginning of the deck. Now gray rolls a 7. Let's see where she puts it. Probably this 5 wheat would be the best spot, because at the same time she would block my only wheat production and also really stop the purple from using his port. Instead, she just decides to be really a good person, and she just placed it on the free wood. Now I need only a ship for the settlement, 3-to-1 port. And I mean, it's always nice to have a port. It's one of my if there is one advice that is like almost true, is that whatever strategy you are employing, either monopolize a resource, or either city knight strategy, road strategy, middle strategy, you always want to go at least into one port. Like, they always help. even if you don't have access to 3-to-1 port, or if you only have access to 2-to-1 port, and you have some quantities of these resources, it is just something that I'd really advise you to do. Oh, and right here you can see another of my mistakes. I have wood and brick in my hand, but I didn't build a road into that brick port, which is a mistake, because now if I get large amounts of resources and then roll 7, you know, I will lose half of them. And you know, it's not like it's not a useless road, because I will need a road into that port. So this is something I should or I wouldn't do if I could have this turn again. Now the gray is really thinking what she should do, but I mean, it's not like she has many options. Now a 5 is being rolled, so I got what, 4 resources, and I have 9 resources in my hand. So right now you can see the situations I'm in. If I roll a 7, then I'll just lose 4 cards. But if I build a road, then I would have 7 resources in my hand, and consequently I would be safe from the robber. So as you can see, there are plenty of ways to really think and behave in the Settlers of Catan. You have to be wary of a lot of things, because I mean, the difference between an average player and a very good player, in my opinion, is really in the details. They're both like good, but the really veteran player or pro player is really someone who can see those little things, like you should build a road, you should point your initial road towards the specific port or specific place, you know, these kind of things, kind of micromanagement. This is the main difference between those two classes. And to go back at the game, what I'm trying to do, I'm really, as you can see, I cannot build a settlement, so I just buy a development card, and finally I really get a knight. So I need another knight, and then I'll have the largest army in my hand, which will propel me to what, 10 victory points. And then I'll just have to what, either build a settlement or city, and that will be the game. Or on the other hand, I can also take the longest road, if I'm being honest with you, because I just saw that I have 4 roads already, which is the highest out of the all players. So right now I have enough to build either a city, or not, I mean, I'm sorry, a settlement, because I can trade 3 ores for a sheep. Now I'm trying to trade, because again, bear in mind that you should always try to trade before you build or before you buy a development card. So trading is really a priority. And that's pretty much the game, I guess. Now I just need to build 1 road, or just build a city somewhere in one of the ports, and this will be the game. Now the gray player is really an example of someone who uh, doesn't is not very experienced in Settlers of Catan already, and is not thinking very far ahead, because this is exactly the situation you want to avoid, like building a road in the opposite direction of your initial road, or building a roads in the towards someone's settlement, because you naturally cannot build there. Also placing settlements on those spots where you have resources which are not complementary. I mean, because what is she going to do with ore if she doesn't have access to wheat? And what is she going to do with all these brick if she has only what 11 wood spots? So yeah, I'm not really sure if this is just like a troll, or she really doesn't have that much experience, or maybe it is even a bug, because sometimes I heard of the problems that different players see different boards, so different islands. So maybe she placed settlements according to her what she saw, but I mean, me and the purple player see the other island. So yeah, I mean, everything is possible. And right now I have really a victory in my hands, so just for the lols and for the end, I use the monopoly card, and then I'll just build the city, and I win the game with what 12 points. So really an easy victory today. It wasn't much of a challenge, but I think that it is a good example of what how not to play. I mean, for example, like gray, you really should think far into the future, and try to avoid these awkward situations. And of course, an example that I warned you in the last video. Don't always employ monopoly strategy only because it looks looks good. I mean, his initial spot was worth 13 production points, but still, remember that this strategy needs the very long time to win. So the sit knight strategy and road or balance will actually win before you if you're not prepared. So yeah, that's really the game, and hopefully you learned something new today, and hopefully I see you soon. Bye guys.